talking. Hello, everybody listening.
up, everyone? Welcome to Youth Group Live, where the faces are hairy and the bellies are full of dairy.
Yes, definitely. Let's just add some dairy. Perfect.
I just ate some pizza. It was healthy pizza.
But it's got dairy in it.
But it's got dairy.
Healthy pizza?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay.
Yeah. Then it was probably healthy.
It was, yeah. It was alright.
We are glad that you are here tonight. We've got a great episode for you. We're going to talk about superheroes. We're going to test out our face muscles. And we're giving away a pair of iPod Pros.
Not just the regular ones.
No.
Did you say AirPod or iPod?
AirPod Pros.
What's an iPod?
iPad Pro. Wait, no.
AirPod Pros let you listen to music on the goes, talk to your friends, all that kind of stuff. Hey, you could even stick in a pair of AirPod Pros and listen to Youth Group Live with them.
You could.
You could do that.
And it would sound so much better.
It would. It'd sound crystal clear.
It would sound like Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
We're talking right in
Yeah. You only think I have a high nasally voice. It's because you're listening on your dumb TV speakers or your phone speakers when you could be listening on a dope set of AirPod Pros. The only way to win is if you stick around to the end of this episode. We're going to draw from all of the names that have been commenting on our Chubby Olympics or commenting on the videos, which, by the way, comment on this video right now.
Yes. Right now.
And guess what? You get another entry into winning these AirPod Pros, right? If one of my students gets it and you live on my way home, you'll get it tonight. And if you don't live on my way home, you'll get it sometime soon.
And if you're one of my students, they might be open.
I was gonna say if you're one of my students, they might be replaced with my current ones.
Cut off the free ones you get it. I got a few of those.
Yeah, it's like these don't work.
I guess you got to return them.
No, we're giving you authentic ones. We're going to have a great show. We're also going to talk about evil tonight. Yes. Evil! I'm a SpongeBob boy. Did you guys grow up watching SpongeBob?
I've never watched an episode of SpongeBob in my entire life.
I feel sorry for you.
Well, he was old, though, so...
I was old, and I am old.
I am older than you were when SpongeBob came out, and I still watch SpongeBob.
I don't watch it.
You were older than me when SpongeBob came out?
I am older now than you were when SpongeBob came out.
Oh, and you still watch SpongeBob.
And I still watch SpongeBob, so you don't have an excuse.
I do have an excuse, and it's that I find SpongeBob very annoying.
You do have an excuse, and it's that you're a loser. Loser.
True.
Guess what? That was another SpongeBob reference, but you didn't even
Oreos are the best, and we'll get to eat them, and you will get to enjoy us.
Eating
You're gonna get to watch us eat some. Hey, you know what? The best way to enjoy Youth Group Live is to get yourself some Oreos
and some milk.
And eat them while you watch.
Yeah, what kind of milk do you do with them? Like whole, 2%, 1%?
If you aspire to look like manly men like us,
then you get 100% milk.
As much milk and eat
whole milk, 100%.
If it was whole 100% milk, it's very different than whole milk.
It's very thick, yes.
It's got little
chunky film stuff on there. Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, let's dive into what we're doing today. We're talking about evil today, and
origin stories.
Speaking of SpongeBob,
evil.
SpongeBob isn't evil, but there are evil people in there. Yeah.
And there are heroes in there too.
Plankton, yeah. All right, so I can't think about evil
Manta Ray
without the Dirty Bubble. All of those. I can't think about evil without thinking about that who fights evil, which is my favorite superheroes, right? Marvel's my go-to, but
I was gonna bring some comic books tonight, but I completely forgot.
Oh, did you? Yeah. I want to get my son into comic books. He's like 5. He just turned 6.
If you're ever interested in comic books, you're like, oh, they're so expensive. Literally, go to like the legit old school comic stores and buy the old stuff.
Is there one like in Mishawaka, South Bend area?
Or you get the free stuff on like Hoopla.
Yeah, if you live in St. Joe County, I don't know if Elkhart does.
Yeah, Elkhart does. Same
okay, so if you have a library card, just get Hoopla, and you can get a bunch of free comics.
Yep.
You can
what is Hoopla?
It's a digital book library.
Digital library, yeah.
Oh.
And so you get an app on your phone, and then you can borrow comic books, and so you can download it for like 3 weeks.
Right on your phone or your iPad or
whatever. Right on your phone or iPad. And then after that month or whatever, they expire, but then you can always download them again.
And they do everything: audiobooks, regular books.
They even have movies.
Hoopla, Hoopla.
This is not an advertisement for Hoopla.
We are sponsored by not Hoopla.
But let's dive into what we're actually talking about tonight. So I can't think of evil without thinking of superheroes. So I thought let's have a conversation about superheroes that's not going to go in the direction that you think it is.
Okay.
We're going to put two superheroes or even superhero teams against each other.
Okay.
And we're going to ask questions that have nothing to do with evil or the superhero team, but it's going to be involving them.
Who could eat the
Let me
most
give
hot
you
dogs?
an example for round one.
If Luke is on the team, I'm voting for him.
All right, round one is who would win who is a better basketball team? Let me find that correct.
Okay.
Yeah, who is a better basketball team? Is it the Avengers or is it Justice League? We're going to talk about it. We're going to come up with what we think, but I also want you guys to share what you think as well.
Oh, that's because I feel like Superman has a bit of an advantage, but Iron Man can counter that though.
Well, and the Hulk can counter it too.
Well, Hulk can counter everything.
I feel like the Avengers have more
people.
Well, yeah, more people. They have more heavy hitters.
I think the Avengers have more heavy hitters.
It's not like hockey.
But what about the Flash?
Is this like street ball or like professional? You get a foul every.
This is like Space Jam.
Yeah,
Space Jam. Okay.
Space Jam stuff.
Sorry.
Here's the thing: Hawkeye has the best accuracy out of anyone in the world.
He just needs to shoot the basketball with an arrow.
Right.
But who's going to stop the Flash? Like that.
Well, Quicksilver. We've got Quicksilver on the Avengers, which he was only there for. I think Civil War was the only one that he participated in.
There's that question: is who's faster, Quicksilver or the Flash?
I think we're gonna have a good conversation about that here in just a second.
Oh, okay.
Hint.
For me, I don't know what you guys have put in yet. For me, I think it's got to be the Avengers because. I think Captain America
what do you guys think?
Is a great team captain.
I see a lot of votes for Avengers. No DC.
Yeah. I think there's no one who's going to be able to shoot past Hulk.
Here's the other issue. We got potentially some people on the Justice League that don't know what basketball is.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman kind of grew up in an area that didn't play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Aquaman, again, very similar. Who knows how much, Superman was involved with Smallville basketball. I don't know. In the TV show, he did some football. That was about it.
So it's like, Caitlin does request that we have no spoilers. So
yeah, okay.
Just throwing that out now.
For who's going to win in a basketball game?
No, for the movie. Okay. You got me there.
Yeah, I would say Avengers. I'd say Avengers.
Yeah, I would say probably.
I think everyone agrees, even our friends online. So let's move on to the next question. I don't think this one will take long, but we've got our conversation between Quicksilver and Flash, and so I just thought it'd be funny to ask, what's a better nickname for diarrhea? The Quicksilver or the Flash? This is round 2. I think you're on round 3, Nate.
Oh, then they must not match up.
Quicksilver or the Flash?
Quicksilver or Flash? I think...
I'm going to say Quicksilver because a lot of times diarrhea is not fast. It's not the Flash,
Okay, but I mean...
Well, once it hits, though, it is.
Yeah, but it just could keep on coming.
Keeps on flashing.
Bouts of it. Bouts of the Flash.
Or silvering.
I guess it just depends. I think that you could have a couple different kinds of diarrhea. And it just depends on what kind it is.
I've learned more about diarrhea today than I have the rest of my life.
I've had diarrhea my entire life, so I could tell you all about it.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
Okay, so... Makes sense, no. You see my mouth talking and these guys fainting. Okay.
I think... Okay, we got Quicksilver, and Ew. All of those correct answers, I think. Although I think the Flash would be a better one for one reason alone, and it's because it can also be used as a verb. Like you're sitting there, you just had a whole bunch of diarrhea or whatever, and you're like, oh boy, I got a Flash, right? You're like, I got a Quicksilver. It doesn't really make as much sense, but I
feel like flashing is already a verb that you typically don't encourage.
Yeah, I got a Flash.
Offline.
Will you comment on there and say, hey, we're working on it?
Real quick.
Now it's back.
We're back?
Yeah.
This says, the computer has high CPU for some reason.
Oh,
But
it's running hot. Are we here? Are we back?
Are all the programs off?
Hello?
70.
Are we here?
Let's see. Let us know when we're back
I don't
on.
have the audio back through, but the video's through.
I think we ended on diarrhea.
Yeah.
Still no audio? Is the mic muted?
Can you see the?
No, it's on mute. So what should we be talking about?
Oh.
Oh, yay, Adriana.
Adriana can hear us. You still can't?
Video kill the radio star.
Does that help?
Kill the radio.
They hear us, so
There was a button not pushed
don't.
On our end.
on our end. Yay!
Oh, there was a button.
Everyone's got
Mute button?
audio, even Nate. Nate, I'm
Turn
glad
off
you
the
can
computer
hear us.
button?
Hey, guys, I'm really sorry. I had to flash right there.
Well, I said the computer had a hot flash.
Oh, gotcha. We should be back. Sorry about the delay. Let's move on to our last question for this real quick. And the question is this. Who would be a better youth pastor, Baymax or Captain America?
Bro.
I feel like Captain America would be able to teach. Yeah, we're spinning again. Yeah, is all
He'd
the
be the
programs
nurse.
off on it?
I'm going to come back and be in like Captain America garb this time.
That'd be hilarious.
It's all switch shirts.
Oh gosh. If you caught us in the middle of switching shirts, that would be.
I got that the other day.
Hey, I think we're back on.
Yeah.
Great. It probably caught us in the conversation.
Just asking random questions.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a good end to our.
Yeah.
Are we back on again?
No.
Yeah.
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 My CPU's only at 40% right now.
So everyone should tell us whether or not you bought fireworks for 4th of July.
Yeah, who's doing their own fireworks. And if
Yeah.
you are doing your own fireworks, make sure to have a parent with you so you don't blow off your hand.
Yeah, Kyrie, definitely. Baymax would be great at like helping. I think he would be like the perfect assistant.
Yeah, I liked it. He's still learning. He'd be the nurse.
Yeah.
It's good.
Which, hey,
He'd be a pretty good nurse.
nurses are super important.
Super important.
Someone said Baymax is not a superhero, and I disagree.
Oh, he's totally a superhero.
He's my
I mean,
superhero.
what's the definition of a superhero?
A hero that's super,
Yeah.
and Baymax is super awesome and cuddly.
Yeah.
And he's a hero
And
in
he
some
can
eyes.
fly and stuff, which
Right.
kind of does stuff.
So there's a game, I can't remember what it's called. It's basically Disney's version of like I can't even think of what it's called anymore. It gives more lore for Baymax though. Not Kingdom Hearts.
Not Kingdom Hearts.
No, it's like they have like little
Isn't that
figures that you like scan on the game or whatever. Anyways, they talked about how Baymax. If you haven't seen the end of Baymax, I'm gonna give a small spoiler.
Plug your ears.
But at the end, Baymax goes into that wormhole, right? And there's this lore that is like official canon, but Baymax basically turns like awesome in the wormhole and
Like goes like
has
Ultron style.
but also turns like evil and has a dark Baymax.
So like Ultron style.
Yeah, yeah. Alright.
Interesting.
If your ears are
I watched a
covered
second-
and you're
I
not
wa-
listening
I
to
watched a
avoid
second
spoilers,
episode.
you can uncover your ears now if you can
So,
hear
like-
that.
All of a sudden, Christina Webb is saying Avengers 4 times.
Okay. Maybe they. I don't know.
Let's be behind on the stream.
I got no idea.
It's a 20-minute delay.
All right, so let's dive in. Speaking of Baymax possibly turning evil, in a video game,
They'd be a
version
good
of
duo.
himself. Yes, they would be a
Captain
great
America be the
team.
leader.
They would be.
Baymax be the assistant with the hammer sometimes because apparently he's slightly evil.
Let's
You need a slightly evil youth sponsor on your team.
We all need them. Let's have a dive into our conversation about what evil is tonight.
Let's do it.
And so we're going to answer the question tonight, as we've been doing, answering questions that are hard, difficult to answer. we're going to answer the question of why is there evil in the world? Can God stop it? And did God create evil? I think we're going to kind of have all of those conversations at the same time. Yeah. So the first question that we need to understand is, what is evil? Someone tell me that answer for me.
I mean, simply, it's the opposite of good. I mean, but reality is evil is the absence of what good is. Dark and light. What is, like, when you define what is darkness, it's absence of light. So what is evil? Absence of good.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a really simplistic way, but
like complete absence of good or absence of like most good. Where's the threshold? Like let's say there's a person and they're like they do lots and lots of like evil bad things, but then they also help an old lady cross the street. Are they evil?
No, but the thing when they did those things, those were evil things.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like when you say, what is darkness? It's the absence of light. Well, when I go outside, it's dark, but I can still see things.
Was Robin Hood evil?
I'm sure he did some evil things.
But Robin Hood stole a bunch of money, but then he gave it to the needy. So he did good things, but also evil things at the same time.
Is giving someone else's money to somebody else good?
That's my question.
I'd say that was probably not.
So you're saying Robin Hood is a bad guy?
I wouldn't
That's
say
a hot take.
Robin Hood is a bad guy.
He had a good ideal behind what he was trying to accomplish, but he did it in the wrong way.
He was made up anyways, I think.
Yeah. And I think, like, as you read through, like,
I've never been a huge fan of Robin Hood. I kind of always thought.
Yeah, he kind of has, like, I don't know, I'm torn about him.
He's got a weird complex about him.
Yeah. Even as, like, you look through Proverbs, oftentimes, like, the writers of the Proverbs would say, like, stay away from evil doers. So, like, it's, like, people who do evil, but, like, not oftentimes in my memory does Proverbs say stay away from the evil one, like the evil ones. Yeah. You know, that there's a person and they do evil. And so I think one thing that we have to remember when people are doing evil things is that people are also created in the image of God. And so the possibility of good is still within them.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that's good. So evil basically is the absence of good, and we also said it's anything that goes against God's plan, and God's perfection. So anything that isn't of God or anything that isn't part of God's plan is evil. But that leads me to my next kind of question, and it's this: so God created everything. So God created evil.
That's a hot take, Preston. See you later. If our stream crashed right now, you'd be in a lot of trouble probably. You'd be getting called into your pastor's office.
But did God create evil? I mean, God created everything. He created the heavens and the earth. He created people. He created us in His image. We do evil. So does that mean that God created evil?
God created the possibility that evil could exist.
I was gonna say the opportunity to do evil, and it comes down to the thing we're going to talk about at the end, which is our own ability. But I do think that in God creating everything, He created the opposite of everything as well. So it's not that God created evil; it's that He created good.
And for something to be definable as good, there has to be something that's definable as evil. Mm-hmm. There has to. You can't have good without understanding what evil is. You can't have, something that innately is beautiful and pure and good without also knowing what is not good and beautiful and pure. And so God created the possibility for that to exist.
Yeah, I mean, you like what we talked about. What is evil? The abs going against God's plan and perfection.
Yeah.
So if He created things and said, "This is what we need to do," therefore, if you did the opposite of that, that would be the opposite of the good.
Yeah.
So in creating good, there had to be an absence of good.
Yeah.
Just like in creating light, there's an absence of light.
Yeah.
Creating things that make you live, there are things that make you die.
And I think that one thing that I think about sometimes is that we have to be really careful. Like, these are not two like equally opposite things.
No.
Good overpowers evil. Like the light shines into the darkness, and so oftentimes like people get confused because of yin and yang. You know, the little circle symbol with they're not equally opposite things. Eventually, and I think we might get to it. One wins, and they're not always going to be coexisting beside each other.
I understand fully what we're saying. But I also want to keep people up at night with this question.
Okay, let's do it.
I like to do that.
Yeah, I do. I just think it's fun. So before God created, it was only God.
Yeah.
And God is only good. After God created, evil existed. So God didn't create evil, but if it wasn't for God creating, then there would be no evil.
Okay, so we got to get to Satan.
No.
Because what you said is God is all good, and so therefore there wasn't any evil in the universe, or the not universe, whatever it was before him.
But the possibility of evil existed.
Yeah, always existed because God existed.
Because of your next point, Satan
existed,
and he was created good. I mean, there's lots of scriptures here. If you want to look up a few, Revelation 12, 7 through 9 is a good starting point. That there was like this battle of this angel that was created as a being to be good, and yet somehow he also
had new student. Hi.
Yes,
you do, sir.
Awesome.
Back to Satan.
All right, but there were he had free will. He could choose whether or not he was going to live in this reality that God had created, or if he wanted to create his own, good, which is actually evil because it's against God, right? So there's this big battle that Revelation kind of describes, and God, and he was trying to dethrone God, and God cast him from the heavens because he can't be around things that are against him, right? Why can't God be around things that are against him?
Because he's the opposite of them.
Because he's the opposite of them. They can't coexist.
Well, it's the same reason why darkness can't be in the presence of light, because the light shines on darkness.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, is like you look at it and go, well, there's shadows. Well, shadows are where, like, I'm currently looking at this box fan against the wall. There is a shadow where it's slightly darker. Why is it slightly darker? Because there's something blocking the light from getting to
shadows only happen when there's something that stands in the way of light.
Yeah.
Evil. But again, that doesn't mean, and I think that's the weird craziness about us as humanity, is that we can have both within us as we battle it out within ourselves. The one thing that angels, there's a passage, I think it's in Thessalonians, I could be wrong, but it's in one of those smaller letters where it talks about, maybe it's in one of the first or second Peter letters, where it talks about how angels pretty much have a one-shot deal, where when they choose to go against God, they get punished immediately. Why? Because they're in the ultimate presence of God already. And so if they choose to go against God, they're fully choosing to reject God all the way.
They're rejecting what they know without a shadow of a doubt.
Because the only way, when they reject God, they have to leave. That's pretty much how it is. And so when Satan rebelled against God, it was, as we read a little bit later in Isaiah 14, 12 through 16, it says, he wanted to be greater than God. He wanted to, in essence, remove God's throne and put a throne above that throne. He didn't even just want to be God. He wanted to be more than God. And I think maybe part of that is he wanted to be able to have both good and evil in him. Which is that interesting idea behind, well, God is all good. Well, Satan wanted to be more than God. He wanted to be all good and all bad. That can't happen.
Like Anakin.
Like Anakin, yes. Yeah.
Caitlin...
go ahead. No.
Caitlin brought up a good point that I think kind of drives us to where we're going next. She said, I think that Satan deceives us and makes us think that evil is okay or not that bad. and then we choose to do the selfish
thing.
Yeah. And so we're talking about where did evil come from, and I think ultimately the kind of the precipice, if I use that word right, I don't even know. The beginning.
Precipice or precipice?
Precipice?
Yeah, the edge where we're going down into something.
Yeah. It sounds smart, so let's go.
Kind of like the beginning of evil was Satan.
Yes.
But Satan was influential. Satan, we see his first appearance in the garden to humans. And I think that kind of set a snowball effect. But ultimately, what Satan did is he brought evil to earth. He brought evil to humanity. And then that spread throughout all generations. But so evil started with Satan, but it spread to us. And I think that we have become a catalyst for that evil in some ways.
And I think that when you said catalyst, that was exactly what I was thinking in regard to Kyrie said, Satan deceives us and tells us that, evil is okay and things like that. So therefore we choose to do bad. It's true. But at the same time, because of our physical nature and spiritual nature within us, we have to decide which do we follow the most. And Satan, all he had to do was set the snowball rolling down the mountain.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with is we sometimes give Satan too much credit for all the evil in the world.
When really we should be the ones.
He may have brought in that first aspect of what that means to think about denying God in some way or another. Mm-hmm. But after that, of course, I'm sure he's, little here, little there across the timeline. But we are the ones that, on our personal decision to say something that is wrong or to do something that is wrong, is not, Satan, puppeteering us to do all those things. It's the motion that we have as a world fallen into decay. And so Satan doesn't need to be all out there touching everyone's lives and trying to infect it, because he already has people out there doing it themselves.
And he's not God. He's not everywhere.
No, he's not. No.
He can't be here and in China and Russia, all at the same time. So.
I mean, and that's the thing is, it's so prevalent. We know that. We know that we struggle. And one of the things that is one of the big challenges between some churches is, are you born evil, or are you born good and then choose evil?
Yeah.
And I fall on that side because God created us, and therefore we are created pure with the chance to not sin. But I get the same struggle with looking at it the other way. And even Jesus, when people were talking to him and they said, good teacher, I think is what he said in Mark 10, and he said, why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. And then in Romans, and multiple Romans is really explaining that we messed up over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And that was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
How much more are we messed up now? Yeah. Because we may have invented a lot of things, but we've invented a lot of things that are good. We've also invented a lot of things that are evil.
We've invented a lot of things that make it evil easier.
Oh, yes.
More accessible, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I think that we have to remember as we have this discussion, and as we talked about, God cast Satan out of his presence, and in the Garden of Eden, God casts man out of the Garden of Eden, is that sometimes we can think that God is like this tyrant that is just waiting to cast us out of his presence. Mm-hmm. But it's like when my kids get in trouble, one thing that we constantly tell them, because we don't want them to have this complex about us being these evil parents that just love to punish them, is you can make a choice right now. This is your choice. You can do what you know is right, or you can choose to have a consequence for your actions that you are currently choosing. And they almost always choose the consequence because they just want to keep on doing what they're doing, which is bad. But I think it says a lot about us, too, that oftentimes we know and understand what's good. And yet, just like Eve, as she looked upon the fruit and saw three things that were desirable for her, saw that it was beautiful, it's desirable, it was good for gaining knowledge. And then, what was the third one? I can usually just...
Tasted good?
And something like that, and good to eat or something like that. It was good to eat, that it was pleasurable to eat, so it looked good, it tasted good, and she thought it was going to make her wise. she knew what God said, and all Satan had to say was, did he mean it? Did he really say that? He just knows, and just takes a moment of doubt for evil to.
And I think that goes along with the next thing is like, so if Satan was part of the reason evil came into the world because of his decision to rebel against God, and then we, were the icing on the cake, I guess you could say, to make it even worse, can God control it?
That's a big. So we're going through this series right now at North Liberty Church of Christ on Sunday mornings, and the name of the series is God is Able. And I think kind of the trend that we're going towards with this series is God is able to, like, infinity sign. Like, God can do whatever he wants. He's able to move the mountains and split the sea, but he's able to transform us from the inside out. He's able to harden hearts and soften hearts. Like, God is able to do anything he wants. He's God. He is omnipotent. He is, omnipotent, meaning all powerful. He can do all things. He is omnipresent. He can be anywhere at any time that he wants to be now, past, future,
It's
whenever.
that foreknowledge, understanding
Right.
the past, present, and future.
So he's all powerful. He is all present, and he is omniscient, all knowing. Like, he knows all things. He knows what's in our hearts and in our minds. He knows what we're going to decide. He knows, he has that foreknowledge of the future. And so, God is able to do a lot of things, but, and I think what we have down here is perfect. The one thing that he won't control is us.
And I think that's the thing is, can God control it? Yes. Will God control it? No.
And that because creation had a purpose, and when he created us, the foundation of being human and being made in the likeness of God was that he created us with free will. And I don't think that God would want to control us, because our creation exists to bring glory to him, and we can't do that if it's our only option.
Yeah.
We have to be able to choose good. That's part of our design. And so if God takes away our ability to choose good, then he's taken away what makes us human.
Which is interesting, because that then would means that God can choose evil.
Well, now I'm going to lose sleep tonight.
But he won't.
Yeah.
I struggle so much with this idea of well, if there's going to be no sinning and no evil in heaven, how is that going to happen? Because I am not perfect. And if I'm saved by Jesus and I get to heaven, how is that? I know our physical temptations and stuff will be stripped away, and we'll get new bodies, whatever that means. We talked about that. What does that all mean? Yeah. But how can I still have free will but choose not to?
Yeah.
And I know that'll happen. It's that part of heaven that's just
Well, and we don't know, we have scripture, but we don't know everything about heaven.
Yeah.
And so there is the precedent already of an angel, and not that we transform into angels, angels and then what our future bodies are two separate things. That's a whole other discussion. But there is the precedent that an angel did fall away and did choose against God. And so is that a possibility when we get to heaven in eternity?
It's just evil won't affect everyone else, because once that evil happens, it'll be removed immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I'm sure okay. Yeah,
But in any case,
and
I've said this to our students before. You look at this being who created the entire universe, did all these amazing things, created light and trees and plants and animals, and created you individually because he loves you and cares about you, can do anything, but chooses to let you choose.
Yeah.
And I think we sometimes don't realize the power we have to choose. And God is, I guess, the greatest superhero. But in our ability to choose, we have our own superpower. Because no other being, animal, whatever out there is a true innate ability to choose like we do. You can see aspects of that within the animal kingdom where they choose things.
I tell you, my dog chooses evil.
All cats choose evil as well. So.
Well, I would say all cats, but there's one particular in our house that is the epitome of evil at the moment.
I don't think you can blame cats for choosing evil. I think
it's just who they are. Yeah, it's just
so if they're being good, that means they're fighting against their nature.
Yeah.
The Webbs are watching right now. They've told me that they have a newish puppy now named Cora, and Cora will blatantly just look at you and then just go disobey. Like she knows what she's supposed to do, and then she will just no.
So she's like my 6-year-old. Okay.
But I get what you're saying though. We as humans, we have been given almost a superpower to be able to choose: are we gonna do good? Are we gonna follow what God shows for us and what God has set out for us, and follow His plan for our lives? Or are we going to choose to try to do this on our own?
Yeah.
And both of them lead to ultimate destinies. But the problem with our superpower is it affects primarily us. And it affects other people around us too, because sin is communal.
Yep.
And, if God has a plan for my life for example, I believe that God has a plan for my life to be a student pastor. And I believe that because He's put me in this role, I can help others come to find the kingdom of God and be part of that. If I choose to disobey God's calling for my life, that doesn't just affect me. That affects other people as well, and the people that God has planned out in front of me. But when we choose evil, the biggest crime, if we're going to use that, the biggest crime that's being committed is our own destiny and our own soul.
And I think that's something. It took me a long time to fully grasp is the idea that how can God, there's the other part of a similar question within this is how can God send people to hell? Mm-hmm. Well, He doesn't. You choose to.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's we don't know all the areas on how that works. We know that there's the thing called universal witness of understanding the world, and that there's somebody greater, and someone created this and things like that. Yeah. But in all actuality, God, like you said, is omniscient. He knows your hearts. He knows your minds. He knows if you will follow Him, if you follow Him, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So when you choose not to, you choose. He gives you that choice, and that's the thing. Does God choose to send anyone to hell? No. You choose to, and He allows you to because He's given you free will.
Well, one of the writers of the New Testament says it's God's will for everyone to be saved.
Yeah.
And yet people don't always follow God's will.
I wouldn't say that's one of the writers. I think that's the New Testament.
Well, it is the New Testament, but I mean specifically, and I can't remember if it's Paul or Peter, says that it is God's will for everyone to be saved. Right. But not everyone follows God's will. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And He's not going to force that. Going
back real quick, what you said, Luke, when you said God doesn't send anyone to hell, I think what's most mind-blowing is that God would try time, and He would offer us so many opportunities so that we could continue to choose heaven instead. If you look throughout the entire Old Testament, you've got the Israelites, just every single chapter of the Old Testament, people turning away from God and disobeying God and choosing to do their own thing. And every single time, God offers them a way to come back. And that all leads up to eventually to Jesus Christ, who is the ultimate offering of, please come back. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how far you've gone. None of this matters, because if you choose to put your faith in Jesus, then all of that evil that's in you, all of your sins, that can all be taken away from you entirely. And this gift of heaven is still available for you. And so we should be mind blown by the opportunities that God continues to give us to be a part of His kingdom, instead of what any human person would do. If we've been betrayed that many times, we would just give up. We'd say, fine, this is what you've chosen. That's your choice. I'm done, though. But God continues to say, hey, you've chosen that, but I'm still here, and I still want you back.
Yep.
Well, and Aiden said sometimes the hard way is the best way to learn. I wouldn't say it's the best way to learn, but I think that quite often that's what forgiveness is, mercy is for, is so God can say, you have understood what it means to do this and that it is not the best way. Yeah. Come back and let's try it the right way. Yeah. And any good parent would want to do that too. Mm-hmm. That's the whole prodigal son story.
Yeah.
Not saying that the father was like, woohoo, my son's going to go off and ruin his life, yay! Yeah. No parent wants that. But to say, I am here when you decided to come back.
Yeah, and the joy when the decision to come back was made.
It doesn't mean that we don't. It's a parable, so there's not a true end to the story. But it's like, that father, if he is the image of who God is supposed to be in this story, it's not like there wasn't potential consequences to this guy's action. It wasn't like potentially he may have gotten a disease while he was out going crazy. Right. He may have gotten some sort of illness. He may have something might have happened that he had to deal with. Yeah. But his father was still there to say, "You're back. Let's work on rebuilding this relationship."
Yep.
And I bet you he had some experience that has taught him and could have potentially made him into an even better example down the way. Not saying that you can't have good examples without bad.
Right.
It's that weird balance thing going on. But yeah.
Well, one thing, Preston, and I think maybe this will kind of gets into free will a little bit, is back in the story of Adam, when God creates man, and then he creates Eve, and he says, fill the earth and multiply, and immediately we think of procreation, filling the earth with kids and with descendants and people. But part of the meaning of that is also he's given us the ability to create. Like, we are made in the image of God. Part of that is that we can create, and that he wants us to create things. He wants us to be creative and to use our skills, our abilities, our gifts. He wants us to use that for good. Mm-hmm. And so when Adam and Eve choose to go against God, and God sends them away from the Garden of Eden, the promise was that they would die. And they didn't die immediately, because God had mercy for them. God had mercy for, he wanted to redeem them. And so as he sends them out, he still sends them out with the calling to create and to fill the earth and multiply. And his hope, his dream, if you will, is that he would redeem Adam and Eve, which we are in Adam and Eve. And so our calling is to create good, for God's kingdom to be on earth as it is in heaven. That's our calling, but we have the free will to say, yeah, I'm going to do that, or no, I'm not going to do that. And then in essence, we choose. Then our eternity. One of my pastors, when I was growing up, said, heaven is just an extension of what you're already doing. If you're already following God, or eternity is an extension of what you're already doing. If you're already following God, then you're going to be following God in eternity. Mm-hmm. If you're not following God, then you're choosing not to follow God in eternity. Mm-hmm. And that's your choice.
So I think we can end with that question.
Yeah.
What do you choose?
What do you choose?
That's a big question, but it's also one that, maybe we don't quite take as lightly as, we would make it sound like, what do you choose? That's an easy question.
Yeah, just to answer it right now.
That's an easy question to ask.
Yeah.
But,
and that's not a question. I mean, that particular question is not even a question we can answer.
Well, and the thing is, you can't, it's not what, like, if I ask you guys right now, what do you choose? Everyone's going to say, like, I choose to follow Jesus. Yeah. The problem is, you have to ask this question every day.
Every day.
You have to ask it every hour.
Take up your cross daily.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the question that kind of has to ring in the back of your head whenever you're faced with sin, when whatever